Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Good, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. So let's start off with talking about 51. It seems like the part in the film was tailor-written for you. You know, military commander, tough, kind of in-charge kind of guy. Were you just, you know, the natural fit for the part? Did they come right to you for it?
Actually, I auditioned, and it wasn't for that part. It was the part of the newscaster.
Oh, wow.
John Shea's role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't really know other than that. I don't know how it came about, but I auditioned for that. I came in suit and tie, and I didn't have that buzz haircut or anything like that. And, I totally did a different audition.
Wow.
And then they called back and said, you know what? They actually would like you more for the colonel.
Right.
And I wasn't doing anything at the time. So I took it, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
Little did I know I'd be going off to Baton Rouge, where everybody is shooting in Louisiana nowadays.
Right.
But I had no idea I'd be going off there. And it was great because I got John and I went to John and I are old friends. We did a mini-series back in 79, 80.
Wow.
80, somewhere around there. Even before that, yeah. So we hadn't seen each other in a long, long time. So it was really sort of a fun reunion for us.
Sure.
We also, on one of the weekends, we caught the last weekend of the New Orleans Jazz and Blues Festival, which we did. So anyway, it was a good time making 51.
Sounds like it. Now, so you said you were down in Baton Rouge, but you were mostly, you know, like I imagine on a soundstage, or, you know, you were in this set of the 51 compound for the whole film.
Yeah, we were to tell you the truth, we were in a large FEMA warehouse.
Wow.
That they converted into you know, from the post-Katrina days, that they turned into, that we used as partially as big sound stages. We had a huge place. There was still a lot of bottled water, and so a lot of those crates and things you see in the background, which gives it the, you know, this kind of a federal-looking place. Those are actually big things of water and you know, that type of stuff that was used to come in and help the people.
Wow.
So yeah, it was kind of fun.
Very cool.
Big musty old place, though, I gotta tell you.
I can imagine. You were pretty much inside the entire shoot. Does that get claustrophobic after a while?
Yeah, we only had one. I had one exterior, which was outside. When the reporters first come in, I believe that's the only time I had an exterior shot, and that was just outside outside the warehouse.
Right.
So anyway, which you know, in keeping with the piece, would have been probably right. What we don't know about Area 51.
Right.
You know, it's probably just this whole complex. You never get outside in the desert. So anyway, and I thought it was ironic that we'd be shooting Area 51 in Louisiana.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not a desert, quite a few miles.
Right.
So anyway.
So
you know, the whole thing was, it was just, and I'm hoping it came across. It was just fun.
Right.
We had a good time. It was, you know, this isn't great intellectual material. It's not meant to be. It was good escapist fun with some good. I thought some pretty decent effects. It was just a good time. Everybody had a ball, and I tell you, it was one of the more pleasurable locations that I had in recent years.
Right.
Other than Tron Legacy, which was another good one.
Right.
So I was doing you know, here I had just finished a huge $100 and whatever million project to I don't know what the budget's for on this, but it was a pretty good one.
Right.
On 51. But you know, I liked it. I wasn't doing anything, and I think part of it was when I found out John Shea was in it, was even much more enjoyable. Vanessa Branch, I've met before, and so it was just a good time was had by all.
Great. Well, I think it comes across. It's a very fun film.
Yeah, I mean, it's made. You know, you've got to consider what it's made for. It's you know, in the sort of horror sci-fi genre, and I've done a few sci-fi things.
I was going to ask you about that. Is that kind of a comfortable genre for you now? I mean, you've obviously done a good number of science fiction projects in your time. Is that a genre you enjoy working in?
Yeah, I do. I do very much. It's most of the stuff that comes my way nowadays. I think ever since Babylon 5.
Right.
But I don't mind that because a lot of times the material is challenging for an actor. So some of the time, sometimes not. But
right.
I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah. Well, how do you pick your roles nowadays? Like, what attracts you to a role? Is it script? Is it who's working on it?
Well, I don't have that luxury anymore. I used to. Basically, like most actors my age group nowadays, we all have to go in and audition again, like when we were young actors coming up. But that's just the nature of the business. I've got a reoccurring role on a new ABC TV series. It's not a science fiction thing. It's quite very, very, very different. But I had to audition for that. So I wish I had that luxury.
Right.
So, some things, Tron, obviously, and that was a beautiful thing that came along. My God, who would have known, 28 years later,
right.
they were going to make a film, sort of a sequel, of the first one we did. So I believe, as far as I know, all indications are they plan to do another one in the next year or so. But nothing is for sure ever in our business.
Right.
That's the plans right now. So I hope to have a good part of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I don't know, the role, it depends on the piece.
Right.
First of all, I think material is paramount, and you've got to, okay, is this an escapist? I really don't have those luxuries anymore. I'm very fortunate at this time in my life to still be working.
Right.
Believe me, a lot of my contemporaries that I started with aren't, and I've been very fortunate. If something that is a good part comes along, I'm gonna do it.
Absolutely.
This time in my life, I also think that it's not about me being the hero anymore. It's kind of liberating.
Right.
I always played the hero of the piece in television series and things like that, which were good,
Sure.
But now when you get there, I get to be a little more I'll play a little different colors.
Right. Yeah.
Not always the good guy as the colonel. I think he's well intentioned and he's following his duty, but he gets a little Captain Ahab about it.
Definitely.
He goes over the line a little bit, but that's drama.
So I do want to ask you a couple questions about some of your iconic roles of your career.
Okay.
Obviously, Tron being one of them. The first film wasn't a great big hit, and then, like you said, 28 years later, you're making a sequel. But right, I can imagine. But it's a very well loved film by a whole generation of people. So I'm curious, what did the film have a big impact on your career as an actor, or is it more just kind of like another role that you played?
Oh, at the time, that was exactly it. Of course, it was a Disney feature. In my career, I was mostly in television. In fact, I was in television, so it was very. I've told this story often. I was doing a western outside of Tucson, Arizona, when I was told about this thing, and I got the script sent to me. There were no emails.
Right.
I got it sent, and I was sitting there, and the old horse. I had this script in my saddlebag, and I don't even know what happened to it. I looked at it, and I was reading it, and I'm in between takes, and I can't make it. This thing doesn't make sense to me at all.
Right.
I have no idea what this is. So I kind of shelved it there, and then we finished that picture, and you see TV movie, and got back to Los Angeles, and then I kind of took it more seriously.
Right.
And they were interested in me for it. So of course, it was a big feature film. And then when I found out Jeff Bridges was already connected to it, he had come aboard, and he was like a contemporary that I admired his work, and I thought, wow, he's probably a great guy to work with, and I was proven very correct in that assumption.
Right.
And the material, I remember I was one of the thousands that came in for an initial look at when Star Wars was casting. So that's how far back I go.
Wow.
And I looked at this and I said, well, it kind of has like a Star Warsian feel, it's kind of their video game warriors, and so it might be interesting. And then, believe me, there was never a time where I was not interested.
Right.
I didn't have that kind of juice, but I just really didn't have a found footage stuff they used to help sell the film to Disney.
Right.
And I thought, yes, this is, and the process seemed so incredibly new and different, especially different for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was natural. Of course, I would jump out of that, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, and then in the end, it was a bit of a slight disappointment to me because I thought it would have had a bigger impact at the time.
Right.
It was funny how this is a film that its impact wouldn't really happen till later.
Right.
Until some years later. It's amazing. So, you know, I always think this now, that when you do something, be careful judging it too soon, because there are films that have just disappeared today that will be classics. You know, they came and went today. Nobody saw it. It was the time it was made, the genre, what have you. And then suddenly, in 20 years, people were looking at this and going, wow, this actually was groundbreaking. This was, you know.
Right.
And that's what was Tron's case.
Definitely. And then, of course, you know, a decade later, you end up on Babylon 5, which has, you know, an equally fervent fan base. What was that experience? What was that like for you?
I loved it. At that time, it's one of those other periods where I really couldn't get anything started, and it seemed, you know, there was a real sort of valley in the career-wise, and I got this call that they were interested in me, and it was a producer, Douglas Netter, who I had done a Western with Sam Elliott back in 1979 with. He called and wanted to see me, and they were interested because they were going to be replacing the lead in a new series that was on sort of cable called Babylon 5, and I think I'd seen it once, and I noticed how different it was from the Star Trek shows that were so current at that time, all the spin-offs. And because it seemed like a darker, more, I don't know, so just darker is all I could think of at the time. And a little more interesting. And so I just went out to their studio and I met them, and I was instantly in. I read a couple of the scripts. Part of John Sheridan was kind of like a sort of, had to be fleshed out a little bit more, but they were waiting to see what they would get for that. And I'm not so sure I'm not sure I was the first one to be called, but I loved it. It answered everything for me. I also got to stay home because everything I was doing, I was going to Canada all the time, doing movies of the week and stuff like that at the time. And this was a chance to stay home and, you know, do a TV series like when I had Scarecrow Mrs. King or Warner Brothers. I got to have a life all weekend at home and things like that. So it answered a lot of things. Plus, it was just really good material.
Absolutely.
And I still think that. I still think it's sort of very proud that it was some of the best material I ever got to work with as an actor.
Absolutely. Well, I have to squeeze in a question about Scarecrow Mrs. King real quick, because I'm a big fan of the show. And that was a good chance for you to do some more comedic stuff in addition to your, you know, leading man type of stuff. Was that a really fun experience?
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much so. That was a great blend. And once again, it's in the writing. The writing is so important. And so, you know, I mean, we got to, and then Katie and I thought, worked off each other real well. And so we brought a lot of the comedy to it. You know, that was so much fun.
Great.
So much fun.
Well, I know I'm running out of time, so one last question for you. Which role do you get recognized for the most when you're walking down the street?
If I'm recognized at all, mainly, I would say Tron nowadays.
Yeah.
As a legacy.
Right.
And hopefully that's going to continue on. You know, you sort of follow the storyline. I think I got a much more active role in the next one. So, but anyway, I think that right now, I do a lot of conventions. I have been doing a lot of fan conventions, and it's pretty much down the line because they're mostly genre, like you know, Comic-Con. They're mostly sci-fi and that sort of thing oriented. So Babylon 5 and certainly Tron are the current things that I'm most recognized for.